Yes, people, welcome here to another week, of course, of Numbers Don't Lie, powered by Sofascore. And this week, I'm gonna be your boy to put you up on game, right? The holiday season's only around the corner, so that means potential sales and, of course, a lot of departures. With the holiday season, no, you need to find yourself a bargain or two. And when you look no further, this might be the best bargain that's on the market right now. So let's ask the real question that's happening in the world of football. What's happened to Rodrygo? But if I'm going to dive into this, there's two house calls that we need to do. First of all, make sure you dive into the comments and get involved. And secondly, introduce my running mate, the Triple H to my Shawn Michaels, the Yin to my Yang twins. And you know what time it is? This Nico Cantor in the building. So Nico, to play for Real Madrid and to wear the, of course, famous all-white shirt, you need to have flair, productivity, but most importantly, you need to be able to produce. What's happened to Rodrygo, bro?
I don't know. His last goal was against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League, and that was a long, long time ago. A record amount of time. So we're going to dive deep into this a little bit. I mean, are we getting rid of Rodrygo already? But listen, this 29-game streak has been incredible. 0 goals, total shots 36, expected goals 1.38 over 29 games. It's not that great, JD.
I'm telling you, man, this the glaring stat, as we said, to wear the all-famous white shirt, you cannot be producing 0 goals. I don't care if you're starting, I don't care if you're coming off the bench, I don't care if you're in the Castilla, if you're in the reserve team. This right here is what your currency is as a forward that is a Galactico. So infamously, when we look at it and you see it in a condensed period, you start to ask the question, is his time running out? Because he's no longer that wonder kid that came here and astounded everyone from Brazil. He's now a 24-year-old grown man that needs to be established himself in the first team.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, he's always been a role player at Real Madrid, but the importance of his role has diminished, especially when he doesn't score goals. I mean, compare him to all the wingers. You've got Diaz, Greenwood, Elise, Vini, Yamal, all the way out far right on this graph with XG and how many goals you score. Rodrygo isn't producing quality shots, and obviously because of that, he's not scoring. He has been so poor.
Bro, that right there is inexcusable. I can hear the people already in the comments. Well, how many games has he started? How many conversations has he been in? If I let you know right now, start off the top of my head, half of those games in terms of this run we're talking about, he has started half of those games. There is no excuse for a player of his quality to be down here when you're thinking about your Diaz, Elise, Yamal, and Vini is all the way up there. It's becoming to the point now we're having to ask serious questions as to whether or not he can wear the weight of that shirt.
It's a good question. I never thought that I'd be asking about Rodrygo because for so many seasons he was the unsung hero. But when you bring in an Mbappé, when you bring in a Jude Bellingham, when there's limited positions for those 3 attackers, Rodrygo doesn't make it. And on top of that, when he doesn't produce, you're casting him off as every game goes on to the side. And we talked about this being a record run, 29 games with the goals. We're getting to Mariano Diaz numbers. I know my Dominicanos watching this aren't too happy about...
You're doing that to them again.
Mariano's route at Real Madrid, but it is historic. Mariano went 30 matches in a row without scoring, and this fact is muy strong. Obviously, it's translated from English, muy fuerte. Mr. Chip with the knowledge here. So 29 plus consecutive games. One more game, just needs one more appearance, and he's reaching that Mariano Diaz numbers. He already has more minutes without scoring than Rafa Marañón, who's about to get there, right? The streak has lasted about to get there. Rafa Marañón was a player from the 70s, but we're talking like modern football. Rodrygo is putting up Mariano drought. Now, let's see how much Rodrygo's numbers have dwindled. The best season, 2022-2023. That is arguably the best Rodrygo. And we're using this pentagon to see all of the attacking numbers. The next season wasn't so bad, but as Mbappé shows up to Real Madrid and as his importance starts dwindling, so do the numbers, right? He hasn't been able to get as many shots per game. Obviously not scoring a game, but dribble attempts per game, shots in the box, XG, all of that drops down. And especially this season, we're seeing a Rodrygo that is a shell of his best version.
You are so right. But you also alluded to an incredible point there, Nico, because when you start talking about a shell of yourself, you need to start talking about the variable as to why, right? So I need for you to turn around and follow me for a second. Because when you start breaking it down, Nico really just alluded to what could be a massive conversation point. When we're not just talking about what's happening on the field, but also what's happening off the field. The second you put on a Real Madrid shirt, you have to balance your egos. You have to balance all of the personalities that's in there. But also you have to balance the positional sense of new incoming players, especially if they're producing. So enter the fray, Jude, Bellingham, and of course, Kylian, Mbappé. Because if you look at Rodrygo before their appearances, or before they, of course, joined the club, where was he finding himself? A lot of times in the central position, coming as an inside forward, wanting to impact the game by cutting inside and doing the things that he does great in terms of committing players, scoring goals, creating chances. As you start to progress into this side, you start seeing he's hugging position a little bit more. He's also on both wings, which is so interesting to me when you think about someone who was so predominantly a left-sided forward to now have to split his game between both the left side and the right side. That might be a notable reason for the progression or the regression. When you start comparing that to how he has to versatile and balance that against these new teammates that he has, who are coming in with massive egos, massive potential, and of course, massive productivity, it's understandable as to why Rodrygo has progressed or regressed in terms of in comparison to your Kylian Mbappé entering the fray and Jude Bellingham entering the fray as well, because he doesn't have the balance in that, Nico.
Yeah, listen, he's either a substitute for Vini on the left-hand side or he's playing as a complement on the right. With Ancelotti, when it was them two up top with the tandem, they were very fluid and you saw a little bit more of this. But when you throw it and Kylian Mbappé into the mix and the Vinicius Jr. into the mix, how often were we talking about there's an overbooking of left wingers at Real Madrid? Well, Vini can't play the same position, Mbappé can't play the same position, and Rodrygo can't play the same position. Then you throw in Jude Bellingham, right, who obviously wants to drift in these areas to provide for either an overlapper, for Vinicius, for Mbappé, two players that are obviously elite, that are obviously at the top of this team's hierarchy of needs. You're going to play towards him. So you have to, obviously, where's the only space that you can float into? On the right-hand side. But Rodrygo says that he likes to play left wing, that he's a left winger, not a right winger, although he has delivered in important matches for Real Madrid on the right-hand side.
Can I give a bit of a moan just to modern football for a second?
Okay.
Because I look at these wingers now, and I grew up in an era with Damien Duff, or I grew up in an era with Ian Robin or Robert Perez or Freddie Ljungberg, where they could play on both sides. They could play in terms of both angles. I think this new age of wingers, yes, they might be more productive, yes, they might be more dynamic, but you've got to have more strings to your bow. You've got to be able to produce both on the right and both on the left. That's why I appreciate players like Leo Trossard, who can do it on both ways. I think even Node Madueke, who can do it on both ways. They're just very, very different in terms of overall when you're looking at the modern footballer now. All I'm hearing this question mark is, oh, well, I can only do it on one side. I can only do it on one side. I don't think that's an excuse anymore. It's unacceptable for a player of his quality to turn around and have the dilemmas and the problems that he's had. But we're not just going to sit here and give the dilemmas. We're here to find solutions. So here's the question marks, right? We've seen all the fixtures across Europe and top 5 leagues this week. Where can we find our home for Rodrygo? I hear a lot of people saying Juventus might enter the fray. AC Milan's another question mark.
I got one.
Thinking a little bit closer to home. Go on, give me one.
Yeah. What about Tottenham Hotspur?
See, now, we watched their performance in the weekend against Arsenal. They lacked a lot of dynamic behaviour. They really didn't have good transitional play. And I think they really struggled in the final third to create individual chances for themselves. When you look here overall and you compare what they have right now, Nico, I think this could be a home for him. Champions League, no doubt about it. European Cup winners. It doesn't matter if it's top tier, second tier, or tertiary tier. They have an actual potential home. And London's not a bad place to live, I can.
Yeah, not bad. And I'm looking at their left wing. Who are they playing on that side? They got Wilson Odobert, who obviously isn't of that type of quality, especially if you compare him to all the Premier League wingers out there. Shots per game, not producing. XG per game, not producing. Dribble attempts per game, got 2. Listen, this is all, I mean, we're not discovering anything new here. Wilson Odobert is not that top quality striker, but listen, let's imagine Rodrygo regains his form, because sometimes you do need a breath of fresh air, and compare the numbers from that season where Rodrygo was lights out to what Spurs have right now at the moment. Look at Odobert, look at Xavi Simons, look at Richarlison. 3 players with different profiles, but Rodrygo, he's coming at you a lot more. Not only that, he's winning more balls per game. And obviously the Sofascore rating speaks for itself. But Rodrygo is a different quality of player that might force Spurs to play a little bit differently for a player like Rodrygo if they are to get him.
And I think Thomas Frank has been leaning or looking for a magic player. Mohamed Kudus, and even in this down period in terms of Spurs' form, has still managed to have an element of consistency. The chances he's created, the assists have been brilliant. If he could find a resolution on both sides, all of a sudden it adds Tottenham with a different level of dynamic. And also, let's not forget, they were very open about the fact that they wanted Savinho in the summer. They were very heavily chasing a player that they knew could create those chances individually.
Without a doubt.
Go and win games by himself.
But
this is another Brazilian that could do so.
I think he definitely can, but I'm looking at the way that Spurs play somebody into space, exploit backlines, and Spurs at the moment
oh my gosh,
isn't doing that.
I couldn't believe this when I saw this.
They are number one in the Premier League with least through balls. They've played a grand total of 4 through balls this season. What are we at? 12 match days in?
4? That tells me all I need to know in terms of the creativity. And I want to give the caveat. Of course, the absence of Maddison is going to impact that. Of course, Kulusevski's absence is going to impact that.
And Xavi Simons hasn't been up to the standard,
And Xavi Simons hasn't stepped into that role that we needed him to step into. But this is highly unacceptable, especially when you're talking about the struggles that Wolverhampton have had, and they've had double the amount of through balls that you've had already this year. There's question marks. And this isn't question marks around Thomas Frank. There's question marks around Spurs overall. Do you have anything else you want to turn around and say? Because I can see it. Rodrygo to Spurs, yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, crazy to think, because the way, especially that they played against Arsenal, you would have thought it provides for space in behind to play those through balls, and they're not even doing that. That game against Arsenal was just a disaster, right? It didn't show Spurs at their best. But just considering that, if they are to get a guy the quality of Rodrygo, they're going to have to adapt a little bit more.
Rodrygo, get on the phone. This is your boy telling you, man. If you need some references, call Gabriel Martinelli, Gabriel himself, Richarlison. There's enough Brazilians in North London to make you feel at home. But of course, if you feel in the comments that he deserves another home, you let us know. This is Numbers Don't Lie. You know what time it is.
Vale. Hey, thanks for watching this video from Numbers Don't Lie. Be sure to catch our show every Monday at 5 p.m. on YouTube. And for news and insights from leagues all around the world, including Serie A, EFL, and all UEFA competitions, both men's and women's, don't forget to sign up for Paramount+.